After a couple of hours, the doctor told her she could go home, and Melania was like, "No, I should stay. I should stay until you check everything out."
Trevor Noah's recent comedic takedown of the newly elected president Donald Trump has drawn significant attention from political observers and casual viewers alike. The moment arrived only a few months after a hotly contested election in which Trump managed to secure a victory over Kamala Harris, a result that stunned portions of the electorate and energized others in equal measure. Eyes have turned to late-night comedy as a kind of therapeutic outlet for those seeking commentary that blends amusement with trenchant observations about America's shifting political scene. Amid this landscape of passionate debate and polarized opinions, Trevor Noah has once again demonstrated the power of comedy to dissect and expose the ironies, paradoxes, and spectacles that can surround a political figure of Trump's stature. The focus remains on the event and the reverberations it set off in the public consciousness, without delving into the extended fallout that might unfold later. What matters most is the way the comedian's razor-sharp wit and bold perspectives provided a lens for countless viewers to reflect on the political twists that have come to define the tumultuous period around the 2024 presidential race. Before we start, smash the like and subscribe buttons for more updates. The lead-up to the night when Trevor Noah delivered his pointed remarks carried a certain tension. Many viewers anticipated that the comedian, well known for his incisive commentary, would use his platform to address the new administration's early maneuvers, policy signals, and public persona. Whenever a significant political shift occurs, comedic voices often channel the collective anxieties, curiosities, and frustrations of those paying attention to the news cycles. This was precisely the case here. With the memory of the recent election still fresh in people's minds, Noah found a ready audience hoping for both catharsis and critical reflection. From the moment he stepped into the spotlight, the atmosphere crackled with an awareness that his comedic assault would spare no aspect of the administration's rhetoric or approach, a hallmark of late-night satire. Observers noted that Trevor Noah's style, while always marked by humor, carried an especially direct tone during this particular event. There was a crispness in his language that indicated he was not merely aiming for laughs, but intended to highlight deeper truths about the newly inaugurated president's statements, actions, and track record. The comedic approach he took reminded longtime fans of the way he has previously handled major political players on his show. He zeroed in on inconsistencies, dredged up contradictions, and pointed to moments of theatrical display that are often a hallmark of Donald Trump's public persona. It proved to be a skillful blend of comedic commentary and subtle political analysis, weaving entertainment with pointed observations that only someone deeply attuned to the cultural and political pulse could provide. Audiences were riveted by how swiftly Trevor Noah laid out the emotional landscape of the country in the immediate wake of the election results. He evoked the sense of astonishment felt by certain segments of the population who expected a different outcome, while also acknowledging the celebrations among Trump's supporters. But he wasted no time spotlighting the intense rhetoric that had been fueling political conversations for months and years leading up to that night. In one jab after another, he unraveled the threads of campaign promises, speeches, and tweets that had shaped public perception of the new president. Each comedic turn seemed to serve a dual purpose: provoke laughter and shine a light on the ways modern political discourse can become muddled by grandstanding and inflammatory language. This duality is where Trevor Noah's artistry became most apparent, as he transformed what could have been a solemn critique into something accessible to a broad audience, many of whom use late-night shows as a barometer for how America is faring. In the early portion of his monologue, Noah showcased an especially sharp brand of humor that put Trump's political style under the microscope. On multiple occasions, he drew from past examples of the president's rhetorical flourish to illustrate the transformation from candidate to commander-in-chief. The comedic effect emerged most strongly when Noah highlighted the contradictions between the image of Trump as a bold outsider and the maneuvers he now employed within Washington's complex system. The laughter that followed stood as testament to how effectively late-night hosts can dissect the performance art of politics. By honing in on the visual, verbal, and stylistic hallmarks of Trump's public performances, Noah proved that satire can provide clarity in a sea of spin. At no point did the monologue rely on out-of-context mockery. Instead, it offered a reflection of the broader structural incongruities, magnified by the comedic lens. As the audience settled into the spectacle of wit, it became clear that this event was more than a typical comedic roasting. At its core, Trevor Noah's performance offered a snapshot of the national psyche, capturing both the intensity and the absurdity of a transitional moment. This was not limited to the personality of the president alone. It also touched on broader issues such as how campaigns can lead to shifts in policy focus, the questionable dynamics of information sharing on social media, and the emergence of a national conversation that oscillates between fear, hope, and cynicism. Noah stood as an interpreter of these crosscurrents, using humor not simply to entertain, but to decode a moment that has perplexed political scientists and casual observers alike. Those attuned to the deeper layers of his remarks found an understated condemnation of an era of fiery rhetoric, where sound bites often overshadow substance. Yet, he couched this condemnation in accessible comedy, bridging gaps between different spectrums of viewers who might not ordinarily consume political commentary. The social media explosion that followed Trevor Noah's takedown demonstrated the enduring power of late-night commentary in setting the tone for national conversations. Within moments, clips of his performance, accompanied by gleeful reactions and passionate rebuttals, proliferated online. People who were relieved to hear a comedic figure address their concerns about the new president eagerly shared the segments, using them to amplify points they felt the mainstream news outlets had neglected. On the flip side, staunch supporters of Trump voiced their criticism, claiming Noah's routine was evidence of bias and elitism. This exchange represented the cyclical nature of political comedy in the modern era, where an initial broadcast spreads far beyond traditional television, generating discussions that permeate various digital platforms. The swirling online debate added a layer of performative spectacle to the initial event, even if Trevor Noah's main goal had been straightforward: to lampoon the 2024 election victor in the sharpest terms possible. A central aspect of the takedown involved pointing out how rhetoric during the campaign often plays out differently once a candidate assumes power. The comedic routine scrutinized the transformations or continuities in tone that Trump exhibited from the campaign trail to the Oval Office. Noah's style leaned on humor to ask challenging questions about the fluid nature of political promises, the role of personality-driven politics, and the responsibilities of those holding positions of enormous power. He used the context of the tight race against Kamala Harris to underscore how easily narratives can shift based on which candidate emerges victorious. The jokes that night were not simply about policy missteps or exaggerated proclamations. They were about a system where spectacle can sometimes overshadow tangible achievements. Many commentators saw Noah's performance as a crucial reminder of the importance of transparency and accountability, especially during the early stages of a presidency. Throughout the routine, a recurring theme emerged: the lingering surprise that Donald Trump had, once again, defied polling and media skepticism by defeating a high-profile figure like Kamala Harris. Trevor Noah seized upon that astonishment, weaving it into a broader commentary on the unpredictability of American democracy. There was no shortage of comedic fodder in a situation where many strategists, pollsters, and pundits had projected a different result. Noah capitalized on that gap between expectation and reality, poking fun at the extensive coverage that had fixated on polling data and debates, only to be proven wrong. The comedic framing underscored a deeper narrative. American politics is often far more multifaceted than surface-level predictions can capture. Against that backdrop, Trevor Noah's takedown arrived as a timely reflection on humility, cautioning audiences that even the most confident forecasters can be tripped up by an election cycle that remains as dynamic as ever. One especially resonant part of Noah's performance touched on the cultural and social fault lines that the election seemed to highlight. Although his main target remained Trump, the segment implicitly acknowledged the broader divides that had propelled the candidate to victory and left many Harris supporters in shock. By refusing to gloss over these fissures, Noah offered viewers a moment of shared recognition, a reminder that comedy can confront uncomfortable truths and force conversations that might otherwise be avoided. Through his characteristic humor, The host managed to shine a light on the complexities of identity politics, economic uncertainty, and the repeated waves of populist sentiment that continue to influence how Americans cast their votes. Yet he was careful to steer clear of a moralizing tone, instead allowing the comedic allusions and caricatures to carry the weight of his observations. The energy in the room built as Trevor Noah pivoted to the early pronouncements President Trump had made since the election. Every line seemed to peel back another layer of political performance, revealing how campaigns can differ from the realities of governing. He emphasized moments that seemed almost cinematic in their flair, underlining how Trump's style, marked by vivid catchphrases and dramatic gestures, continued to enchant some while alienating others. In painting this picture, Noah managed to keep the crowd at the edge of their seats, waiting for the next punchline that would transform political theater into comedic gold. The comedic pacing was impeccable, showcasing a master performer's ability to gauge an audience's reaction and build upon it. Moments of tension would give way to bursts of laughter, revealing that despite differing opinions about Trump, there was an overarching desire for insight couched in humor. The camera occasionally panned to members of the audience who appeared both excited and somewhat overwhelmed by the relentless nature of the takedown. Their expressions captured a mix of surprise and amusement, reflecting the emotional roller coaster that political satire can create in an environment already charged by electoral outcomes. Some attendees likely came expecting a mild skewering of the newly elected president, only to find themselves immersed in a relentless comedic barrage that targeted everything from policy statements to personal eccentricities. The crowd's collective reaction became a microcosm of the broader viewership, a tapestry of those who found relief in seeing the powerful subjected to comedic scrutiny, those who felt uneasy about mocking a sitting president, and everyone in between, all grappling with the extraordinary moment unfolding before their eyes. Observers of the political landscape often discuss how comedic platforms serve as an informal check on those in power. In this event, Trevor Noah exemplified that function by using humor to underscore the importance of accountability. The comedic vantage point gave him room to explore the contradictions within President Trump's earliest moves without resorting to the formality of news broadcasts or policy analyses. Instead, the monologue wove narrative threads together, from Trump's tumultuous relationship with the media to the grand stagecraft that defined his campaign rallies. Humor became a scalpel, slicing away any veneer of infallibility, reminding citizens that even the highest office in the land is not above critique, however satirical it may be. By the end, viewers might have been laughing, but an undercurrent of seriousness ran through the entire segment, hinting at deeper questions about the trajectory of the administration's public engagement. An intriguing layer to the performance involved the unspoken comparison between Trump's victory in 2024 and the outcome of the 2016 election cycle. Although Trevor Noah did not delve into extended historical references, the parallel was difficult to ignore. The sense of déjà vu that many felt, seeing Trump rise to the presidency once more, provided comedic opportunities to explore the cyclical nature of political phenomena. Noah highlighted how, despite lessons that might have been learned from the previous time Trump defied mainstream expectations, certain segments of the public and media still found themselves caught off guard. This comedic re-examination served as an ironic observation about American politics' propensity for repetition and amnesia. While the humor lightened the mood, it also conveyed a subtle warning about taking any single outcome for granted, no matter how many experts or polls suggest one result over another. A significant aspect of Trevor Noah's approach hinged on how he connected specific moments of Trump's post-election narrative to the broader theme of political spectacle. The entire run-up to the event had been saturated with analysis of what a second Trump presidency might look like. Commentators dissected every policy statement, every staff appointment, and every social media post. Noah leaned into this saturation, showing how the frenzied nature of political coverage and Trump's flair for the dramatic created an almost endless supply of material for comedic commentary. He sprinkled humor throughout in a way that invited the audience to question whether the spectacle overshadowed the real issues at hand. The repeated comedic prodding directed attention to how campaigns in the modern age can sometimes focus less on detailed policy proposals and more on building a personality cult, a performance that can greatly influence voter perception. Supporters of Kamala Harris found themselves in the spotlight of Noah's jokes as well, albeit indirectly. The comedian zeroed in on the collective surprise many experienced when she lost the race. Without referencing specific statements or endorsements, he explored the fervor that had built around her campaign. Some supporters believed her background and campaign message would resonate powerfully in a changing electorate. Noah used this scenario to illustrate how expectations, once elevated, can lead to some of the biggest emotional reversals on election night. The comedic spin on that crushing disappointment provided a sense of solidarity for those who felt stunned, though it never became a targeted ridicule of Harris herself. The focus always circled back to the newly elected president, maintaining the core comedic tension. At the halfway point of the routine, Trevor Noah introduced an element of self-awareness, acknowledging that part of his job as a comedian was to transform the tragedy and triumph of political shifts into comedic narratives. Viewers who had followed Noah's commentary on previous political developments sensed a continuity in his style. He has often used personal anecdotes and cultural references to make broader points about democracy and leadership. This comedic approach, which merges personal reflection with pointed commentary, has given Noah an edge in bridging generational and cultural gaps. During the event, the audience appeared ready to accept that comedic lens, laughing uproariously at moments that might otherwise have been divisive. Part of the monologue's success lay in that bridging effect, as it offered a momentary sense of unity or shared perspective, even among those who might disagree on broader political questions. The single event of Trevor Noah's takedown symbolized a culmination of various societal tensions. It occurred at a time when many citizens were questioning the health of American democracy, wondering if the electoral system truly reflected their hopes and fears. Some felt elated by the prospect of another Trump presidency, seeing in him a champion for their economic, social, or cultural concerns. Others felt crestfallen, alarmed that a divisive figure had once again ascended to the highest seat of power. Noah channeled that tension masterfully, using humor as a vehicle to remind people of the chaotic environment that emerges when public figures harness populist energies. The comedic barbs pointed toward the complexities of the modern news cycle, which can magnify every misstep, every bold statement, and every celebrity feud, leading to an environment where substance can be swept aside by theatrics. There were moments when the comedic takedown transcended mere entertainment to become something akin to societal commentary on the role of media. Noah highlighted how outlets often fixate on sensational coverage, inadvertently enabling the rise of figures who excel at commanding attention. During the lead-up to 2024, the same cyclical patterns emerged, where controversies around Trump propelled endless debates and headlines, overshadowing more conventional politicians who struggled to match his ability to dominate the spotlight. The host's comedic lens suggested a need to reflect on whether the press bears responsibility for the outcome. By interspersing humor with nuanced critique, he managed to raise questions without resorting to sanctimonious declarations. The laughter that ensued blended merriment with a hint of discomfort, revealing the power of comedy to both entertain and unsettle viewers who recognize truths beneath the jokes. Viewers who tuned in that night likely found themselves navigating a complex swirl of emotions. Some, no doubt, watched in delighted agreement, feeling vindicated to see someone so publicly criticize a president they opposed. Others were uneasy, viewing the segment as another example of media bias, this time delivered through the medium of late-night television. But a third contingent, perhaps, approached the event with an open curiosity, acknowledging that comedy can sometimes articulate unspoken realities in a way traditional journalism cannot. The widespread reaction testified to the ongoing resonance of Noah's style, which has been described as less about bombast and more about clever dissection. While there was certainly enough bombast in Trump's own persona to fuel the segment, the comedian opted for a methodical approach, letting one comedic punch build upon another until the entire edifice of political hyperbole stood exposed. A particularly memorable sequence involved Trevor Noah analyzing the swirl of social media posts that documented Trump's first moves as the newly elected leader. Though the comedian refrained from quoting anything directly, he framed the overall atmosphere surrounding these posts in a way that resonated with the audience. He conjured a sense of spectacle, drawing attention to how social media platforms can serve as both a tool for leadership communication and a stage for self-promotion. Noah scrutinized how Trump's brash style continued to drive engagement, whether that engagement was supportive or critical. This analysis offered a comedic but perceptive snapshot of the digital ecosystems that now shape political narratives. Many found themselves nodding along as Noah joked about the near-constant cycles of reaction, outrage, and counter-reaction that have come to characterize contemporary public discourse. Throughout this takedown, the response from the live audience never dwindled. Every comedic punch landed with audible effect, culminating in waves of laughter that sometimes made it difficult for Noah to continue. Observers noted how the comedian adeptly rode these waves, capitalizing on their momentum to transition into the next segment of his routine. The synergy between comedian and crowd highlighted the cathartic role of such an event. For many, hearing Trump critiqued so sharply and humorously served as a brief moment of release, a welcome alternative to the sobering analyses found on news programs. This dynamic is what has historically made late-night comedy an essential part of American culture, turning it into a forum where current events are stripped of their decorum and laid bare in comedic form. By placing the 2024 election in the spotlight, Noah also underscored how political campaigns are increasingly becoming episodes in a longer, more interconnected narrative. Each cycle references the previous ones, building layers of context that comedians can unearth in fascinating ways. The routine included wry reflections on how the media built up Kamala Harris's chances, only to pivot when Trump secured a decisive victory. This pivot opened a pathway for comedic critiques of the ways journalistic narratives can shift gears almost overnight, from revering one candidate to grappling with the reality of another's triumph. Noah used irony to expose how quickly many narratives changed once the results were confirmed. The comedic foundation in these observations kept the performance lighthearted, yet the underlying commentary about the relationship between media and public opinion emerged clearly. Some of the most entertaining points came when Trevor Noah found humor in the contradictions that accompanied Trump's statements leading up to and immediately following his win. Without presenting verbatim quotations, Noah's recollections illuminated the comedic gap between campaign theatrics and the responsibilities of governance. He poked fun at the audacity of certain grand pronouncements, reminding his audience how bold claims made during rallies sometimes run up against a complicated federal system. The monologue teased out how allies and advisors often have to reinterpret or roll back those claims to fit the reality of governance, turning grandiose promises into watered-down compromises or strategic retreats. This comedic reveal functioned as a behind-the-curtain look at how politics has always had an element of showmanship, a showmanship that late-night satire remains poised to reveal. While dissecting the spectacle of Trump's re-election, Noah implied that Kamala Harris represented an alternative path that many believed would define the future. The host's words highlighted the unpredictability of an election that many had called a referendum on Trump's first term. The comedic tension sprang from the idea that conventional wisdom about demographic shifts and progressive momentum ran headlong into Trump's continued ability to mobilize his base. That comedic tension centered on questioning if the Harris campaign perhaps underestimated the fervor of Trump's supporters or the resonance of his message. Even though the focus of the takedown was on Trump, this undertone of missed opportunities and electoral miscalculations served as a reminder that satire can also poke holes in the grand narratives of the losing side, even if indirectly. A significant portion of the monologue also explored how the entire 2024 campaign was marked by spectacle. From massive rallies to viral social media spats, the election often resembled a continuous reality show. Noah's comedic talents flourished in pointing out the clash between the solemnity of democratic processes and the unrestrained theatrics that, in many ways, have become a defining trait of modern campaigns. He extracted humor from how candidates vied to capture attention, occasionally overshadowing nuanced policy debates. The environment seemed tailor-made for satire, a stage filled with dramatic personalities, larger-than-life promises, and repeated instances where public discourse devolved into personal attacks. As he continued to chip away at these contradictions, Noah effectively illustrated how a candidate like Trump thrives in such a dynamic that rewards strong branding and the ability to capture headlines. The audience's response, captured in occasional reaction shots, revealed that many present recognized the weight of the topics under comedic scrutiny. There was relief in the laughter, an acknowledgement that tensions had run high throughout the election cycle. By pressing on the comedic nerve, Trevor Noah provided a release valve. That emotional resonance might explain why late-night comedy holds such an influential position in contemporary culture. It offers an accessible avenue for digesting complex and sometimes distressing political realities. People left that event with the memory of an evening that managed to distill months of campaign chaos into a coherent, if irreverent, narrative. In a polarized world, that sense of coherence can be refreshing, even when it arrives cloaked in satire. Although the central theme remained the destruction of Donald Trump through comedic means, Noah's performance deftly acknowledged the systemic nature of political power. He lampooned the figurehead, but also probed the environment that allowed him to succeed once more. By weaving in references to the supporters, media outlets, and national temperament, the routine expanded beyond mere personal critique. This expansion made the takedown resonate beyond the immediate target, tapping into anxieties about how elections are influenced by cultural identities, economic pressures, and a perpetual hunger for spectacle. Each joke became an opportunity to reflect on the deeper questions surrounding leadership and public engagement. Many watchers appreciated this layered approach, finding that the humor not only entertained, but also prompted them to think more critically about the institutions and collective behavior shaping modern elections. The atmosphere in the studio grew more charged with each comedic strike. There was a palpable sense that Trevor Noah had tapped into a wellspring of sentiment shared by viewers who felt unsettled by the immediate political climate. Every well-timed punchline cracked open another facet of Trump's public image, from his penchant for stirring controversy to his showbiz approach to politics. The comedic portrayal drew attention to how the new presidency encapsulated both continuity and change, forcing Americans to grapple with a second Trump term even as they recalled the drama of the first. This duality lent itself to moments of humor that simultaneously acknowledged how surreal it felt to some that the same storyline had, in part, repeated itself. As the conclusion approached, the takedown reached a kind of crescendo. Noah channeled the collective disbelief that many had voiced since election night, weaving it into a narrative about an America that still struggles to understand its own divisions. The comedic mortar holding this story together revolved around the capacity of satire to reveal uncomfortable truths in an atmosphere of laughter. This balance ensured that the event felt neither too grim nor too superficial. The comedic dissection allowed viewers to see themselves in the political drama, recognizing that in every election, the electorate's own beliefs, biases, and aspirations play a massive role in determining outcomes. Noah's subtle message was that Trump's victory was not solely about the man himself, but about the climate that allowed him to ascend. In that sense, the monologue suggested that any real change or reckoning would require an honest look at that broader climate, even if it came through the prism of comedy. Such a layered performance could only thrive in a media ecosystem where free expression is celebrated and scrutinized. Noah's takedown exemplified how comedic voices can operate at the intersection of cultural commentary and political critique, offering perspectives often absent from more traditional forums. By focusing on the newly elected president in a comedic fashion, Noah carved out a space that allowed audiences to digest recent events in a manner that felt immediate and relevant. The satirical approach did not require a deep dive into legislative details or bureaucratic processes. Instead, it used well-crafted humor to highlight what many saw as contradictions and inconsistencies. In doing so, Noah carved a unique niche, where late-night commentary functioned as a companion to journalism, and laughter became a form of collective processing. Many who watched or subsequently heard about the performance noted how it reaffirmed the significance of comedic commentary in shaping public dialogue. Late-night talk shows have historically played this role, dating back to a time when political figures occasionally braved these programs as guests, bracing themselves for potentially awkward banter. In the modern era, the format has evolved into a formidable platform for critique, one that can be unflinching in its approach. Trevor Noah stood as a testament to that evolution, able to combine humor, cultural insights, and political observations into a single monologue that resonated with viewers from diverse backgrounds. For some, this routine might have served as a rallying cry to stay vigilant. For others, it merely confirmed pre-existing biases about President Trump's suitability for office. But the unifying thread was the recognition that comedic analysis belongs firmly in the landscape of contemporary political discourse. If you liked this video, please give it a like and subscribe to our channel. Also, leave your comments below and tell us. What are your thoughts on Trevor Noah's take on Trump beating Kamala Harris? We want to hear from you. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.